This is the next episode of Heroes for Freedom. I'm Rick Robison. The Navajo Code Talkers, America's forgotten warriors. I entered his humble home in Ganado, Arizona, deep inside the vast Navajo reservation, which was in the shadow of the Lukachukai Mountains. Yes, this is also the land of the famous, or infamous really, Yenadkloshi, or skinwalkers. It was the fall of 1974. I was young then. I was in my early 20s at the time. And I had had the opportunity, I was invited to come and talk with this man who was a senior member of the local tribal council, a man in his mid to late 50s. The man was Carl Gorman, one of the original 29 Navajo Code Talkers during World War II. As part of the Marine Corps, these amazing Americans stepped forward when Pearl Harbor was attacked in order to defend their country. When I met with Mr. Gorman that day, however, I did not really want to ask him the question that was foremost on my mind. I thought maybe it's not appropriate. But Councilman Gorman knew what was in my heart, and I believe he wanted to lay the matter at rest right up front, in fact. He said, "Yataheshiyaj," which means, "Hello, my son. Tishbalana." What are you walking around doing? That's what that means, literally. Of course, that's not the real meaning. The real meaning is, how are you? But what are you walking around doing kind of gives you an idea right away of the perspective gap that exists between Navajo and English. And probably gives you a clue as to why the thinking of the Navajo and how they constructed their sentences and their language, of course, would become the perfect code language to save the lives of our Marines and to help win the war. Yes, I lived on the Navajo reservation as a missionary for 2 years. I learned this beautiful but highly challenging American Indian language, and I use American Indian here rather than Native American. I hope you'll forgive me if this is a problem for you, but the reason I will tell you and I'll reveal to you in just a moment. Early in our conversation, as if he could read my mind, Mr. Gorman answered my question. He said, quote, "I fought for America for 2 reasons. First, because this is my land. An enemy had attacked my land, but more so I wanted all America to know that the Navajo are warriors, unafraid to stand for what is right. America was attacked by an enemy, a terrible enemy. They deserve to be punished. So I joined to do just that, to punish this enemy." Unquote. I will never forget the evening, in fact. We had a great discussion. Councilman leader Gorman was seated in his home. There were several photos, war photos, and other war memorabilia surrounding this famous Navajo warrior. So I told you I would explain. I've known hundreds of American Indians in my life. I've lived with them, worked with them, worshiped with them. The vast majority tell me that they don't like the term Native American. No, they prefer instead American Indian. But better still, far better, is their own honored tribal name. So that's the moniker I use, and I use it with respect, of course. Okay, let's step back a moment, take a little look about these how these honored heroes came about. I don't want to dwell too much on the history of the backstory because the whole story is amazing. As we entered World War II in December of 1941, America did not know if it could beat such a better prepared and aggressive Japanese empire. A small group of young Navajo men then stepped forward to serve their country. Their contribution would, in fact, prove crucial to an Allied victory. I think we've forgotten this. We don't hear about it anymore. It's talked about very little. These men were known as the one and only Navajo Code Talkers, and they used their native language skills to develop a truly unbreakable code throughout the war was used very effectively. And they thoroughly confounded the Japanese and helped secure victory in the Pacific theater of World War II. They did not train, prepare, or fight alone, however. They were guided and supported by a number of other American soldiers, including Major Howard Connor, who helped maximize the effectiveness of the Code Talkers. So let's talk history. In the Pacific, nearly every battle, the Japanese were killing hundreds, perhaps thousands of Americans sometimes. Soldiers, sailors, and Marines particularly. America needed better more secure communications. It was in this context that Philip Johnston, a World War I veteran who had grown up on the Navajo reservation and was fluent in the language, proposed the idea of using the Navajo language to create a new, undecipherable code, he said. And yes, it would prove unbreakable. The Navajo language had an incredibly complex grammar structure with unique and confusing sounds. Sounds not found in the English language. Sounds very difficult, in fact, for English speakers to hear, let alone pronounce. Needless to say, the language is especially difficult for non-Navajos to learn, let alone sit down and decipher. More so, Navajo had no written form, making it the ideal language to transform into the perfect military code. In 1942, after Philip Johnston's successful demonstration of this proposed code, in fact, the U.S. Marine Corps, they enlisted the first 29 Navajo Code Talkers, known as the Original 29. They wanted 200, according to official records, but they needed to get the right men. These men developed the encryption system, in fact, themselves, using Navajo words to represent military terms, in effect, a code within a code. And they trained then other Navajo Marines in its use. These men were part of a tightly knit group, an elite group. Many knew each other. In fact, they were friends. Many were related or from the same clan, so they were family. The Navajo people are made up of a number of individual clans, in fact, which each member of the tribe identifies with their own clan. This is a very important part of their identity. Along came Major Howard Connor. The Navajo Code Talkers were assigned to work with Major Howard Connor, the 5th Marine Division signal officer during the Battle of Iwo Jima. Major Connor oversaw the operations. He was determined to fully integrate the Navajo Code Talkers within the existing Marine Corps communications operation. And this was not easy. Prejudice confronted the Marines right from the get-go, these Navajos. But Connor worked through it, refusing to let ignorance stop what he knew would be vital to the cause. For Major Connor was not only an administrator, this man was a visionary. Amid many rigid and short-sighted career men, right away he understood that the Code Talkers, they would never be effective in actual battle without full functional integration. That was the key. And for a branch of the armed forces, for this branch particularly, it has never been known for its flexibility, especially setting aside tradition. And that was a challenge with the Marines, to be honest. But Connor and the Code Talkers had no choice. The desperate nature of the critical battle of Iwo Jima particularly required that they bring the Code Talkers fully on board. Their skill, their execution during this key battle helped turn the tide, in fact. Connor and his Code Talkers working around the clock. They worked continually, transmitting and receiving critical messages. They passed those messages on then at real time, immediately. The intelligence that was needed much faster than any other code system had ever been able to do. They were so effective in the field, in fact, that commanders finally admitted that thousands of Marines were saved who might not have made it. Connor later remarked to his superiors, pressing for respect that his men deserved, he said, "Were it not for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima," unquote. In the end, Major Connor was successful, I believe, because of his willingness to not only show the Code Talkers the respect that they were due, but more so, he had faith in their potential effectiveness by giving them the kinds of risky responsibilities that changed the course of the war. In essence, he gave the Navajos the opportunity to shine, and they did. The Code Talkers at Iwo Jima amazed senior officers with the speed of their execution. More so, we know they thoroughly confused and befuddled our Japanese enemy. Here we are in the thick of battle, and the Navajo Code Talkers fought in some of the most lethal battlefields in the Pacific Theater, including Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. From the front lines, they transmitted and received encoded messages that directed troop movements, and they coordinated attacks and relayed vital intelligence between command centers and frontline units. But more important to their success, I think, the code they developed was so unique and cloaked that it remained unbroken throughout the war, giving the Allies a significant strategic advantage. Despite being deployed in the deadliest engagements, the Navajo Code Talkers performed their duties with extraordinary courage and efficiency. As I mentioned, at the Battle of Iwo Jima, Code Talkers worked around the clock for 48 hours, transmitting over 800 messages without a single error. This was unheard of at the time. Their efforts were directly credited with helping to secure the island, which was a crucial step in the eventual defeat of Japan. The success of the Navajo Code Talkers was not just a victory for the U.S., no, but also a triumph of the human spirit. These men, who came from a culture that had faced decades of oppression and marginalization, chose to serve a country that had not always treated them fairly. Yet rather than succumb to bitterness or victimhood, they rose to the challenge, using their unique skills to help overwhelm a tyrannical enemy and bring the war to a merciful end. So let's talk the significance of their contribution. The beauty of the code was its simplicity. For those who knew Navajo, of course, it was simple. Anybody else, no. But which in the heat of battle is always essential. Simplicity. Simplicity when everything is going to hell. That's the way it is on a battlefield. And they were able to reduce mistakes to a minimum, even to zero in many cases. Looking back, experts believe that the use of the Navajo Code Talkers shortened the war in the Pacific by at least a year, saving tens of thousands of lives on both sides, maybe more. Yet the Navajos never asked for special treatment or recognition. They just wanted to be respected and allowed to get the job done. Their service and sacrifice demonstrate that such qualities have the power to lift people up, and more so to rescue nations, changing the course of history. The world that we live in today is a world that requires courage, service, sacrifice, but most of all, the power of action, the right action. In a world where it is often easier to shoulder the mantle of victimhood, complain about injustices, and demand immediate redress, the story of the Navajo Code Talkers offers a compelling counter-narrative. Yes, these Americans did not let the humiliation of past injustices define them, or allow poverty or discrimination to diminish their sense of duty. Instead, they rose above. They demonstrated that true strength lies in service, in stepping up when called, and making heroic sacrifices. The Code Talkers are a perfect reminder that constructive action, not words, defines greatness. For true heroes sacrifice for others without expecting rewards in return. The Navajo Code Talkers never sought fame and recognition, yet humbly and courageously they achieved something extraordinary, not just for themselves and their people, but for a world in the grips of the worst kind of despotism. I am honored, really honored, and blessed to have known personally some of these incredible Americans. It's too bad most of them are gone now, if not all. It's been many years. There's so many lessons for us in this, and so many that I hope that I can teach my children and grandchildren. Thank you for your time. I'm Rick Robison, and this is the Heroes for Freedom podcast.